I see everybody talking, but I cannot hear a sound. I see shadows in their eyes, we're chasing sunshine out the clouds. I love the way you treat me, love the way you touch me, love the way you feed me like I got the munchies. My foodie from when I try to act like I don't. Love the way you say I can go wherever I want. You respect my time and damn, you wanna spoil me. Treat me like a queen, you know this pussy royalty. Compliment my style and say you love my energy. Hope this lasts a while and you never turn an enemy. I'm your little angel, make your stars align. Say I'm always on your mind, your mind, your mind, your mind, your mind, 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 mind. I'm your little angel, wanna spoil me. Say I'm always on your mind, your mind, your mind, your mind, your mind, 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 mind.
Thank you, Callie Cheese. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Girl Let's Talk and docuQueer celebration. Tonight's event will take place in English with Spanish interpretation available. And before we get started, Ruth and Viria from the Community Language Cooperative will tell you all how to access these interpretation services.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. Hola, muy buenas tardes. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here. My name is Ruth, and I am here with my colleague, Viria, and we are here to practice language justice. So thank you to the organizers of this event for practicing language justice. We want to make sure that everybody's able to listen, hear, speak, and participate in the language of their hearts or the language that they speak at home with their families. Today, we have interpretation in English and Spanish. Once we turn it on, you will see the globe icon at the bottom part of your screen. From there, you can select English or Spanish. You can also say mute original audio. If you have any questions, any problems, let us know. We will be available on the chat box. And if you are on a tablet or a cell phone, you will see the three dots that say more. On there, you also see the option for language. Thank you so much. I will repeat this in Spanish. Entonces, una vez más, muy buenas tardes a todos, todas, todex, las personas que están aquí. Gracias a los organizadores de este evento por practicar justicia del lenguaje. Siempre queremos asegurarnos de que todos puedan hablar, leer, escuchar y participar en el idioma de sus corazones. Así que hoy tenemos interpretación en inglés y en español. Cuando la encendamos, ustedes van a ver el icono de globo terráqueo en la parte baja de la pantalla. Ahí le pueden hacer clic, elijan su idioma, pueden apagar el audio original. Si ustedes están en una tableta o un celular, van a ver los tres puntitos que dicen more o más. Ahí también va a tener la opción del lenguaje. Si tiene alguna pregunta, estoy aquí con mi compañera Viria hoy. Nos puede mandar un mensaje en la cajita del chat y con mucho gusto les ayudamos. Y es todo. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ruth, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. My name is Lily Hearn Foundation. I'm the programs director at Q. Before I introduce tonight's event and the event organizers, I have a few housekeeping notes to go over. Ruth just went over how to access Spanish interpretation, but as a reminder, or for anyone who joined late, you can click on the globe-shaped interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom screen and select Spanish to listen to a simultaneous audio interpretation of this program in Spanish. Live captions are available in English tonight. If you click on the CC closed caption button at the bottom of your screen and select show subtitles, you'll be able to view them. You can also elect to view a transcript from that same menu that will show you more of the conversation at one time. The event today is being recorded. If you are not comfortable with the possibility that your face and name may appear publicly, please turn off your video and rename yourself using an alias. Please keep your microphone muted during presentations. This helps the audio quality for the group. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to type them in the chat. Finally, this is a safe space. Please respect the voices and privacy of all of the presenters and attendees. Feel free to private message a Q staff member during the event if you would like to discuss questions, concerns, or problems. We all have Q in our username, so you can easily identify us. Anyone displaying inappropriate behavior in any form will immediately be removed. Girl Let's Talk, an docuQueer celebration, is the final event in Homoland security. Come in, Girl. a programming series featuring queer and undocumented artists and art making, and the winning selection from Q's 2021 Open Call for Public Programs. It has been organized by Anthony Barroso, Varun Katar Sharma, Danilo Machado, and Lauda Vieda Ramirez. The showcase, conversation, workshop, and celebration that comprise Homoland Security, Come In Gurl, highlight the ways queer and undocumented artists complicate societal constructions of identity and push back against tropes, erasures, and co-optings by considering tactics of resistance and reclamation, including creating collectives and broader networks of care. The organizers themselves have actively demonstrated these tactics by forming a collective and organizing the series, inviting such an amazing group of artists to participate and share their work, and seeking and securing additional funding from the University of Connecticut Activist in Residence Program, New Haven Pride Center, Connecticut Students for a Dream, and the Queer Unity Empowerment Support Team in order to be able to realize the full scope of their Dream series. The additional funds they raised enabled them to ensure that language justice was centered in this programming by having all events presented with Spanish interpretation available, and to commission a poster remix by artist Julio Salgado, who is joining us on the panel tonight, and whose original print, Homoland Security, Come In Gurl, was the inspiration for the series title. This poster remix is for sale tonight, and all proceeds benefit Mariposas Sin Fronteras, a Tucson, Arizona-based group that seeks to end systemic violence and abuse of LGBTQIA+ people held in prison and immigration detention. It's been a pleasure to work with Anthony, Danilo, Varun, and Lau on and in Homoland. Thank you for all of the work and the care that you put into organizing this series. And now I'll hand it over to you all to get the celebration started.
Thank you so much, Lily. And thank you so much, everyone who is joining us today. It's really an honor to be here organizing this event with one of my bestest friends, not one, some of my bestest friends, and to be here in community with such amazing artists, organizers, and just dope queer folks. And so as we get started, I would like everyone who's here with us today to please drop in the chat who you are, what's your name, pronouns, and location. And our check-in question is, what are three things found in your homoland? So my name, today I'm Kali Usis, but my name is Anthony Barroso. I use he, him, el pronouns, and I am located in occupied territory known as New Haven in Connecticut. And three things found in my homoland: water, for sure, because I have to stay hydrated. Books, some of my favorite books. And the last thing, I really love mangoes. I have some right next to me to keep nourished. So those are three things in my homoland. You won't find any borders, any Department of Homelands, and definitely not ICE. And so yeah, please share in the chat. I would like to also tell y'all a bit about our story, how we came here, how we got to organize this series and be here with this event. It's really been a dream. It started out, it started out as just an idea between Danilo and Varun when they saw the open call for Q's opportunity to create a series, and we came together, Lau, myself, Varun, and Danilo, and just thought about like, what do we want to do? What kind of space do we want to hold? And we all met through organizing specifically around immigrant rights. We, during the pandemic, got together and really were trying to create solidarity amongst our communities, knowing that undocumented people were often being left behind, not receiving any support. People were losing their jobs, don't have access to healthcare. And so we kind of just like met through organizing the Undocu Fund, and then that led us through different side series and programs that we were putting together to uplift and raise money, and also have really important conversations. And some of the events you see were part of the work that we collaborated on together. But this has been really special because often I feel that our queer identities were not always the center of our fight in the immigrant rights movement. And to create the space and to honor folks who have been doing the work, have been making art, have been organizing for years, and have really shaped the way that we do things today. It's been an honor to do this together. And so yeah, that's how we've connected, and it feels really amazing to be here and to hold this space here with y'all. And now I'd like to kick it off to Varun, who is going to introduce Danilo.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Varun, use they and he pronouns. And I'm just gonna briefly introduce Danilo Machado. And I'll start by saying, I was on Tinder yesterday and someone in their profile wrote, "I radiate major dumbass energy, so be ready." And I share that to say that Danilo is the opposite of that. In our previous Homoland security event, Danilo was described by Alan Pelez Lopez as smarter and more politically aware, let the record show. But on a personal level, I have known Danilo is one of the people who brought me into the immigrant rights movement many years ago. And we've been collaborating ever since. And have been I have a huge sort of intellectual, creative crush on Danilo. And I'm always singing their praise, reading their words. Yeah, and I really love you, Danilo, and I'm really excited to be collaborating with you on this project. So, and Danilo is a poet, a critic, a curator, currently based in Brooklyn, New York, and is involved in so many different projects that I couldn't, if I named, we would just be here all evening. So I'll pass it to you, Danilo, to say a couple words.
Thanks, Varun. Yeah, right back at you. I admire you so much, and you're one of the most, I don't know, insightful, caring, intentional people I know, and have taught me so much around organizing and facilitating and collaborating. And I feel so lucky that we've had so many times that our paths have crossed. You know, you'll see all our pictures are at a very special place and at Socrates Sculpture Park, where we hung out in person this summer for the first time in a long time, and after being on Zoom for many months, planning this and other projects. Yeah, so I'm really grateful for you, Varun. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that was, super beautiful to hear from y'all. So it's my turn to introduce Anthony, or Callie Usis, who's looking amazing today. It has been truly a pleasure getting to know Anthony over the past year, really mostly through Zoom Spaces, but also the one chance that I got to meet you at Socrates, also in this picture. And Anthony now has debuted Callie Usis through this work, through our first event, but is also an amazing organizer and visual artist. You should check out his work at Art by ARB or ARB. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, or the initials. Definitely check out his work. And he's from New Haven, pronounce he, him, el. And yeah, the quote says everything. Before Poppers, I was a good immigrant. Everything, yeah, so much relatable content. So yes, please follow him and support his work.
Thank you so much, Lau, and thank you all. I would now have the honor to introduce Laura Vera Ramirez, who is a writer, an organizer, a dope teacher, from Norwalk, Connecticut, but just recently moved. And it's just really, over the past year, it's been an honor to be able to collaborate and work and learn, you know, from you. You're such a caring and thoughtful person. I think some of my really some of the moments where I felt like just really like in awe of your presence was during the People's Saturday School. You just held that space with such an amount of care and wisdom, and I'm just like, yo, like, you're so young and you hold all this like knowledge and power, and it's amazing. I'm just like, yo, like, I'm so glad that we've continued to collaborate. And I was so happy when, because we like, you know, met virtually during the pandemic, and then like to actually meet in person and hang out and, you know, get Colombian food, go to the Socrates sound bath and just experience that day and that event. It was truly amazing, and I'm so happy to be in community with you, and I love all of y'all. So thank you, thank you for being in my life. And yeah, I'm really, really happy. And that quote is amazing, you know. So yeah, and now I'm gonna throw it back to Lau.
Thank you so much, Kelly. With that, just wanted to do, before we get started with our amazing panel, I'm really glad that we got this chance also to talk about how great everyone is. And yeah, love y'all so much also. But we will get a link in the chat soon, and just wanted to do our land acknowledgement before we start the panel. So, ooh, sorry, I lost it for a second, I think, in the spotlight. Give me 1 second. Okay, so we want to begin by acknowledging that we stand here or sit here or in different positions here on stolen and occupied land. And I personally am currently on occupied Massachusetts land. And if you'd like to find out more about the land where you currently reside, please use the link that will be in the chat from the Native Land Project. So I want to give y'all a few seconds. If you already know what land you reside in, go ahead and send it in the chat. And you can also use the link Native Land. Let me see if I can find it. To find out where you reside if you are not sure yet. So let me send that link in 1 second. So yeah, send it in the chat. In teaching, I learned how to do chat waterfalls, so we could like wait for it, or everyone can start sending it now. Okay, thanks so. And as we are getting this in the chat, I also want to welcome you to share where you're coming from in that way, and think about how, as we fight for immigrant rights, we aspire to affirm the sacred relationship between these people and the land and water that we currently call home. We also must acknowledge that not all of us are settlers on this land, that many of our ancestors were kidnapped from our homelands and enslaved for generations in order to extract profit from the land and construct many of the cities and institutions where we live, learn, and work today. Ultimately, our communities and in fact our planet's survival and liberation requires not only the radical redistribution of wealth built on legacies of genocide and slavery, but the return of all of the land to its original stewards, as well as a shift away from the capitalist idea of land ownership. So yes, continue sending those in the chat. We'll give a few minutes before going on to this next portion. Okay, thanks everyone. Yeah, thanks everyone for sending in the chat. So our next piece is to talk about, just to recap, this is the fourth event in our series. So we wanted to give a brief recap first of our past events. So our first event, as you can see, Callie and I moderated sort of a showcase called Show Me Your Papers. And you can see how cute we look there, of course, as we do today. So I just wanted to think back on that event. And Anthony, what do you remember most about the event? What stood out to you most from that day, other than your outfits?
Oh man, so much, honestly. I think I really, and I mean, I've always loved like reviewing it, but I think to be in presence of Jimena and like their presentation on docuQueer history, I think it really adds so much context, so much. It sets the like the groundwork and like the basis for like where we're at, and I just thought it was so dope. And it was really great to see like the reactions people were having too, you know. But as well, I mean, just all of the work that was part of the showcase was so powerful. I think something that I always like think back onto is just like having Jesus and Sultry, you know, connect with the folks in the showcase and the audience, and like having those conversations around their work. And I thought like that was just so dope to see. That was, yeah, some of my favorite moments. Overall, I just loved every minute of it. It was truly felt like, okay, like this is Homoland, you know, like this is us celebrating different types of mediums, artists from different spaces, you know, and we're all interconnected, and it's beautiful to tie it together and seeing the progression from like, you know, 2010 and now how folks have grown, and also, you know, like even our mentalities and in the movement and in our art making have changed from like just fighting for our humanity and fighting to say that like we deserve to live here, to just be like, hey, like we deserve to just exist, and like we don't want to just be perfect, and like we don't have to be perfect to be valid as human beings. I think like that was also something really great.
Thanks for recapping that. I think that really helped me to also like think about the highlights of the event, and Jimena's presentation. Of course, Jimena did a docuQueer history lesson for us at the beginning of our showcase, so that really put a lot of things into perspective of the several years of immigrant rights organizing, and the amazing queer and trans folks who have been at the forefront of all of this work from the start. So it was really great to bring out like the joy in the art that has been produced also, and remember, how important we all are. And it really felt like a community space. I remember feeling like I was worried that I'd be stressed during the event, but it felt like I could actually relax. And like I was like, even though we were moderating, we were just kind of like hanging out and watching videos, similar to how we prepared for the event and like just being on Zoom watching videos. So I'm glad we got to share that with this larger community, and I'm excited for the events that are also the rest of this event, for sure. So I will now pass it to Danilo and Varun for our next recap.
Yeah, so Danilo, do you want to get us started?
Sure. So our next two events were a back-to-back fireside conversation and writing workshop with Soniki and Seka and Alan Pelaez Lopez, two honestly iconic artists, writers, poets in our community. And I know we've learned so much from their work and their presence and their language, and it was such a joy to have them as part of this series. And with what most stood out to me is that they were so intentional during their program in talking about the relationships, both their relationship, their friendship, and also this like broader network of artists and writers that have shaped their work, and they like uplifted, a handful of them. And so it felt very sort of aligned with, all the ways that as a collective we've been sort of asserting this, this constellation of community and of artists that have shaped us, and that we've learned so much from being in community and in our own sort of friendships and relationships. So yeah, I really appreciated the ways that those were so present in Sonia and Alan's programs.
Yeah, and for me, I just remember there's yeah, that just to be witnessing their love, which has been was such a beautiful thing and sacred thing, and also hearing Sonia talk about how a lot of their poems start as Instagram captions, which was really validating for me and all my like antics on the internet. So, but beyond that, it was also just really beautiful to be able to also share the creative writing workshop with them, to actually practice our craft together, to reflect, to write, to share our work, and get feedback. And I'll never forget, thank you, Laura, for sharing your work. And I'll never forget that image of the signs pointing their way to, right, just some of the visual art that was created during the brief creative writing workshop. Yeah, I will hold that very dear for years to come, and just really grateful for Sonia and Alan. And I hope you all, if you haven't already, right, purchase their work, follow them on online, and I think that we are ready to get started for tonight. What do you think, Danilo?
Yeah, let's do it.
Laura, are you ready? Kali, are you ready? Kali,
So ready.
Kali stays ready. So we are tonight graced with the presence of many icons in our community, and I'm going to let Danilo, including Danilo Machado, who's going to be moderating tonight's panel. I've said enough nice things about Danilo, and I don't think Danilo's ego needs any more stroking, especially during this Leo season. So I'm just going to pass it over to Danilo. But before I do that, I just want to briefly, or Danilo, do you want to do this?
No, go for it. Go for it.
I just want to briefly encourage folks, if you haven't already, we have this beautiful remix of the original Homoland security poster that we commissioned. Thank you, Julio, for working on this with us. And we're selling this for $25, including shipping, through the Q website. Can someone help me by dropping that link in the chat so that you can get your copy? And yeah, I really, and all proceeds of this poster benefit Mariposas Sin Fronteras, which is an organization based in Tucson, Arizona, that's working to end the systemic violence and abuse of LGBTQ people in prison and immigration detention. So yeah, please, if you can, drop some coins and purchase get your hands on a beautiful, this beautiful print, so you can hang up at your home and yeah, have a memory of this series that we spent so many months and months laboring over. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it to Danilo to get us started with tonight's panel.
Thanks, Varun. So before we start, I want to acknowledge that one of our panelists wasn't able to make it today. So Ola Osaze, and we still want to uplift their work. And so you can read a little bit about Ola on this slide, but they're an incredible and prolific writer and organizer. And you can find their work many places. I'll put a few links in the chat. And yeah, they're someone doing and continuing to do important work, particularly uplifting the stories of Black undocumented, queer and trans migrants, and the sort of countering the ongoing erasures of their experiences through both, through organizing advocacy and also through a really amazing sort of creative writing practice that they also share some of it with the world. So you can find them at Ola Osaze, and then those are some of the publications on the screen. Yeah, so we were hoping to have Ola today, but hope we can still together uplift their work in our conversation as well. So this is such a dream. I mean, it's all of it's been a dream, but this has been such a dream panel. And with all of our asks, after every yes, we were like, whoa, we're really gonna have sort of the most iconic queer undocumented voices and artists and activists as part of the series. And so to introduce them, we're going to play a little bit of their work. So first is the illustrious Pearl, who, as it's like an iconic Brooklyn-based poet and drag artist. And last year we collaborated on Undocu Poetry Week. That was a week-long series benefiting the Connecticut Undocu Fund. And I am just such a big fan of their work. And we'll play a little clip of one of their pieces.
Yeah, let me make sure the audio is sharing.
Not a sound from the pavement. Has the moon lost her memory? She is smiling alone. In the lamplight, the withered leaves collected my feet, and the wind begins to moan. Memory, all alone in the moonlight, I can smile at the old days. I was beautiful then. I remember the time I knew what happiness was. Let the memory live again. Every street seems to beat a fade
Thank you all.
Wow. Yeah, it never stops being I never stopped being shook by that performance.
I feel so lucky to have that video and to be able to watch it as I become a different person. Like this was, I don't know, I mean, I think we all feel like different people within the past year, but I think that video was in 2018. And I don't know if you noticed when I was watching it, I got very emotional. I just felt such empathy for the person that I was. And I say some really heavy shit, you know, in that piece. And I'm just standing in front of it. And I don't think I realized that I was disclosing so much. I just wanted to tell as much truth as I could. And I didn't want to lie. So, but watching it back, it's just kind of like, oh my God, that's a lot of information I just shared. But yeah, I just felt such a tenderness for myself at that age. And thank you for sharing it. Thank you for sharing it. I hope it's not like I know it seems it can come across as like kind of narcissistic to be like, wow, like I like teared up, but I just felt kind of emotional just being like, I guess you just forget, you know, the things you're going through when you're going through it. I think, you know, I think that's also a very queer and like a very immigrant kind of defense, you know, which is like, I just have to get through it. I'm just gonna get through it.
Yeah.
And you get the moment when your art opens up just a little gap and you're like, oh fuck, like I'm dealing with a lot. I'm feeling a lot right now. Yeah, so thank you.
No, thank you. And I totally I totally know what you're saying. It's sometimes only in retrospect, only in the archive that sort of you like recognize the, I don't know, bravery, but not in the sort of outside sense, not in the like, oh, you're being so brave for a whatever. But in the real sense of telling the truth, and that is such a like a liability, but it's such an urgency. And yeah, I'm glad that it exists for you and your process, and also for everybody else. And this, you know, part of what we try to do with the series is this uplift this archive that has gaps in it, but that does exist, of our community's art making. And yeah, it continues to change and grow and evolve. So let's welcome the next panelist. Thank you, Will. Okay.
Hello.
Hi. Let me spot you real quick. Wow, Angelica, thank you. And thank you for this gorgeous self-portrait. Wow.
You're welcome.
Love a floral moment. You know, this is a fresh haircut on you tonight, the debut, the world premiere of this haircut, but your hair looks so good in this self-portrait. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I'm a little bit emotional after Pearl's amazing performance, so I'm gonna try my best. Okay, so this piece is, I didn't mean to match it today, actually. This is such a beautiful coincidence. That color was actually such a serendipitous choice in the studio, so it's really cool that art imitates life today. I made this piece out of a conversation I had with my co-host. I have a podcast called I'm Still Doing It, named after Gloria Saldúa, who's a queer Chicana writer and theorist. And we sort of were having a conversation in a very, very early episode about femme labor and emotional labor, and the labor that folks in the queer community who are feminized
have to do, right, to make others feel comfortable. So we basically do this labor of comfort for our safety, right? And a lot of that was coming up because I just felt like I needed to get paid, and I was very frustrated. And essentially, you know, we imagined this hotline called 1-800-PFM, where you could call, as I'm doing in the portrait, and just, you know, Venmo or send some money over to your favorite femme or someone who you think needed to be compensated for that work. And I think it really opened up the floodgates for a lot of folks to be open about the labor that they do that is uncompensated. And then compensation is not just money or currency, it's really just acknowledging, right? Sometimes it doesn't need to be compensated in the way we think under capitalism. It just needs to be acknowledged and appreciated. So that's kind of where the piece came from. And this is a, I believe, 18 color serigraph that I did over a year at Soho Graphics in LA. And yeah, it was beautiful. I made this print with a Libra, and I can't think of anyone else to make a femme print with.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And it, you know, in conversations about like migrant labor, it's sort of the gendered aspect of labor that is always present, as is, you know, race, etc. Is sometimes erased. So, you know, uplifting that labor and that sort of, and I appreciate what you're saying about, you know, even thinking about compensation and about equity, about acknowledgement, sort of both within and outside of capitalist structures. So folks can Venmo you. Is that your Venmo on the screen? That's your Instagram? Okay, great. So folks can do
my
that.
Venmo is there. My Venmo is easy to be found in the bio where things live. Absolutely.
So folks can do that. But more importantly, to sort of imagine calling this hotline, you know, regularly, and just, you know, checking up on yourself if you acknowledge the labor of the femmes in your life. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So lastly, I feel like, I mean, I don't want to give Julio, I don't want to give you too much of a diva introduction. I was gonna be like, Julio, God needs no introduction.
Hi.
Yeah, so no introduction, but I will say, as I've, you know, as we've shared with you during our planning call, that your work has been so affirming and life-giving for as long as I can remember being queer and undocumented at the same time. And it's been such a pleasure to see it grow, and to see like such a consistent and generous and messy and like beautiful portrayal of our community and experiences. We have a short clip from this beautiful documentary, and we can play it.
The undocuQueer series, I think, is a series that a lot of people know me for. It was my homage to my fellow undocuQueers. It was my need to make sure that people knew who the fuck was doing the work. It was the queers. One of the things that I love about us is that we're fucking hilarious. Imagine a drag queen and a bear at the border, like lifting, and it's like, coming in, girl, like anybody's welcome to this country, right? Like imagining, what do we want aside from the nose? What do we want aside from making art that is constantly sad and constantly reminding people that we suffer? I started, develop myself more as an artist. I started including a little more of myself. This idea of being able to like travel free, being able to imagine a place where I didn't give a fuck about borders and I can go anywhere in the world. I remember.
She's the cursing girl.
Tell us a little bit about that clip and that film and the film in general.
Yeah, it was my Lady Gaga moment, self-produced film. I think for me, so I had the opportunity to be part of this exhibit at the Smithsonian, right? Like with so many other artists that I admire, like Esther Hernandez, Melanie Cervantes, and so many other badass folks. And my best friend, my brother, Jesus Iñiguez, who also went to school with Angelica, and I went to school together. He was like, we need to document, the fact that you as an undocumented person, got to showcase work at this place, right? Because a lot of the times, these institutions don't really, it's not until we're dead, let's be honest, like, it's not until we're no longer here that then there's some sort of like homage and and that's not okay. That's not okay. I need to eat now. I need to make sure that I'm the one telling my story. And so we had an opportunity, through Free the Work, which is like about, some of the folks who were like, let's help you, finance, this short. And it happened so fast. It happened during the pandemic. The show opened during the pandemic, right? Like right when we were, things were shutting down. And so the Claudia Zapata, who's one of the co-curators of the show, Printing the Revolution, was like, yeah, come and film. And we did this, really quick. And again, Jesus, right, who's also undocumented for me, who we've grown together. Like I couldn't trust any other person than Jesus to like really tell the story because he knows me best. Like he's seen me at my worst, and at at this moment that I wanted to celebrate, right? And so I actually brought a little thing here, the Homoland Security first sketch that I made back
Oh
in
my
2015. So this
god!
was the sketch.
Wow!
And then this were like the words. My
Wow!
I think like again, right, like the fact that this department exists, right, because we are seen as terrorists, we are seen as the enemy. I wanted to make fun of that, right, and it's really hard to like kind of use humor, but as the illustrious Pearl, like it's just using something so personal, that it's like we're more than this tragicness, right? And so for me, it was really important to like reimagine, right? Like I'm letting everybody come in. I also have another piece. I had another version. It's a show and tell. I had another
Yes.
version of the Homoland Security, which was like it's another print.
Oh wow!
It was in 2013. We did this one says on docuQueers, don't stop at marriage. What else does it say? Fuck your borders, and LGBTQ issues are immigrant issues. In 2014, I'm part of this organization called the Center for Cultural Power, and we got a couple of artists together to do some it's a woodcut, and we did this show called Carving Through Borders. And again, like I think like kind of going back to your work and revising it and like play with it. We're so lucky to be able to do this because I think art is a way to like, it's our therapy. We're put it out there because if we keep all this shit inside, no, I can't. And so like we make art to like put out. Well, I'm speaking for myself, but I think my fellow panelists would agree that it's therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And it's, thank you for sharing the archive and also the story about like insisting on insisting on documentation. And because otherwise it gets lost. Otherwise, like our stories aren't told, or they're told by people who aren't us. And what you're, talking about, Jesus, like, and I know you've been collaborating for a long time, and sort of that trust, and it's so important, and sort of having us tell our own stories, and tell our stories in community is like, at the heart of the series, for sure. And so I'm curious about this, like 2014, we saw in the clip, we saw that Homeland Security animated along with your docuQueer series, and you shared sort of the initial drawings and this other version of it. But I'm curious about like, what were like some of the circumstances in 2014 that you remember in making that work?
Yeah, I mean, I graduated high school in 2001. The year that the Dream Act first became, like introduced, right? So I'm considered an elder in the community. I've been doing this for a while. Yosimar Reyes, who's like, a really good friend of mine, and who uses a lot of humor to this, right? It's like, girl, you're an elder, like it's a lot of younger folks who are telling us like, oh my god, I saw your work when I was in high school. It's like, but yeah, respect your elders. But up to that, like, the story, the narrative that I always knew about immigrants, and I was part of that narrative, was like to always show how much of a good Americans we are, right? Like, we're good Americans. And so a lot of the earlier work previous to like 2013, up to like I would say 2010, was very much about like, I'm sorry, forgive me for being a criminal. It's my parents who brought me here. And I think a lot of us started like, you know what? A, the Dream Act didn't pass. B, they still don't give a fuck, how much you ask people for forgiveness. And so I personally got tired of trying to prove my humanity, right? So I started trying to use like more humor in the art, and then like color. I'm very I'm very intentional around using like bright colors. We were discussing King of the Hill, The Simpsons, earlier, and like Darius and other like cartoons like in the 90s were like huge influence in my art and the work that I wanted to do, because that's what I wanted to show, right? And so like that's how at that time I felt very like, I need to, like, I don't want to be stuck in this sad thing, and the messiness, the sadness, the heartbreaks, like all that. Like, I wanted to make sure that that I want to include that. And so like this is very much like Homoland security. Like we would let everybody in, and how many of us nicked into a gay club because it was a safe space, right? And so I think it was for me very important to like switch that narrative a little bit. I'm afraid that it's a little bit coming back again, that narrative of like, with DACA. I recently made a piece where like there's this conversation around like let's save the DACA youth, and I'm like, ma'am, I'm 37. I'm not youth anymore. But like this idea, this narrative that people still have, that it's still like a thing that only affects a certain population. And I'll be quiet.
No, thank you. Whoa, and Angelica, do you remember where you were in like 2014, or more broadly thinking about like if there's like an earlier work that was sort of negotiating, or at least in the made in the context of some of those early conversations?
Oh man, I also feel like an elder in so many ways. I'm 30, but I might as well be 45 when it comes to my organizing and how far we've come. I think 2014, I very vividly remember because I started my PhD program in 2012, and I'm formerly undocumented. I was actually undocumented during really formative years from 10 to 17 and a half, which I was unqualified for most federal aid. And I had to do my first year of college basically on my own with like a full-time job, getting paid under the table. So it was a really interesting experience to think about 2014 because I was just very disassociated, I think now thinking back about it, it was a coping mechanism to like not want to engage, because I feel like my undocumentedness came from this really vulnerable young self where like I was very scared. I think about that time in my life as a time of like being terrified of being found out, and like being afraid to like learn how to drive, and all these different things tied to that time in my life. So 2014 just felt very like away from my body. It's one of those years where like I was watching myself from above a little bit. And I was also in grad school and it was going terrible. I was in a really abusive mentor-mentee relationship. And this faculty member that I thought was going to care for me wasn't. And it was just like, I was trying to survive in a really deep sense. And the news was like the last thing on my mind at that time, and that was a privilege too. But just thinking about how afraid and how much fear-based my decisions were even then, right? Like how the fear that kind of cemented itself in my body from early on was coming back. And so, and I have, I have a mixed status family. So like there were people in my family extended that were like really afraid for what was going on at that time. And so it was really hard to hold it all. And I think that's such an immigrant thing, is like, I think Will mentioned it earlier, you keep on trucking on and you try to like keep going, but you're still like leaving all these things behind unprocessed. And so I definitely relate to that. And that's where I was just like trying to keep my head down, trying to do graduate work that didn't feel like it fit me, but I was just trying to survive in a really toxic academic space. And I'm glad I survived it. I just graduated, but it definitely feels like that time was a struggle. So she was not doing okay at that time, I could tell you that.
I'm sending you some love from now into the past, Terminator style. I'm just gonna fucking pop out in a ball of lightning naked and just blow you kisses and then disappear. No, that's real. And I reflect a lot of those same feelings. My story is that from the age of like 19 to 25, my family went through a deportation process. So it seems like a long time, but time is a luxury, I guess. At least that's what my lawyer told me as I was paying her to stall. What happened was that, so I came to the States when I was 5, and I became a citizen through my parents, because I was my 3 other brothers took the citizenship test themselves, and they're still currently citizens. But what came out was that my parents were involved in this huge defraudment scandal, and what was the DHS at the time. What's that asshole's name? Robert Schofield, who basically was middle management supervisor, who worked around the Nova area, like DC, Virginia, basically preyed upon Asian American families. I'm seeing some nods. I feel like most people don't know about this, but this dude basically would approach Chinese families who were waiting in line and say, hey, he spoke Chinese too. So he would say, hey, just come to my office. I'll do your papers for you, right? And my parents assert that they never paid him money, blah, blah, blah. But basically when they caught him, he released all these names to shorten his sentence. So he's out of prison now, or I guess with an abolitionist framework, it doesn't matter. But he released all these names, his prison sentence was cut short. And my parents were among the 200 families in the lineup, right? So when we were coming back from my grandmother's funeral, when I was 19, which was the last time I was out of the country, these guys in suits came up to us and was like, hey, come with us. And they started showing us some photos, being like, asking my parents, do you recognize anybody here? And my parents were like, no. Which to this day, I'm just like, good, you didn't snitch. That's awesome. But I think at that time, I had no understanding, what was happening. And like Asian parents often are, they say, oh, don't worry about it. We got it handled. They did not have it handled. They were in way over their heads. And as I went through college studying poetry, of all things, and got a job, or like came into myself as an adult, I quickly realized that I was the person to like in the family that would handle this, and find a lawyer, fill all the documents, do that research, all of it. So that was, between 19 and 24, I had a lot of growing up to do, and not a lot of time to really think about it. And at the same time, I was also like trying to date, and just like coming up in New York, coming up against this like racism, this femphobia, all this bullshit. And it was a connection I made was just like, every time I felt I was rejected, it hurt in the same place. which is so weird, right? It's like the scale is so different. Like being dumped by your state is like not the same as like being ghosted. But like if the pain was just like in the same place, and I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, what do I have to do? Why do I have to feel so not valid in my body, in my spaces? And at that time, I was like, while I went to school, I have all these poems. I'm gonna write a really sad lyric poetry book about what is like to be have your citizenship taken and be told you don't belong in this country and to be on deportation. And like this is ridiculous, right? Because it's literally happening to me right then and there. So I'm just like, I'm gonna turn this into a product. And it became, and that's what I was taught, right? That's why I knew about being an American and having gone to art school was like, this is what you do with your degree. And you're gonna like earn resources that way and acclaim and love, and like then they'll never do bad things to you. And I got to this point, and this was when I was meeting other queer artists, queer undocumented artists. I got to this point where I realized it's like, I don't want to make a book about this right now. I can't make a book about this right now. I'm too depressed, I'm too sad. And if I do make a book about this, I don't know what fucker is gonna buy it and like put it on their shelf and just let it get dusty. Like that, this is a really important story to me. It's like, probably will have pictures of my mom in it, you know, like I don't want that. So I'm really glad that I had drag at that time as an outlet as well. And that I could just lean into that because I knew that was ephemeral. And I knew that the people in Bushwick, like the white queers in those spaces, they had to confront me as a body at the very least, feeling a bad feeling in front of them. And when that wasn't enough, I just put up a PowerPoint behind me being like, okay, so this is how I really feel. Like you can like see this body, but also like these are my thoughts and these are like my political needs and like my material needs. So this is a long way to say like that's how that memory piece kind of slowly came together, which is just like I have a body and it needs to process emotions at its own rate, and I have a mind that is trying to make sense of what is happening to me. And this is like what I've gathered so far, and here it is in like the most beautiful, evocative, funny way I can think of. Yeah.
Thank you, Lo. And I think what like you're describing is, I'd love to hear from Angelica and Julio about this, is this moment of being drawn to different artistic forms, so poetry and drag, and I love all the space you take in between, and then you know how that sort of discovery and emergence is not always cleanly in conversation with like a sense of outness, a sense of activism, a sense of, you know, being part of a movement. So yeah, Angelica and Julio, I'm curious if there is like one specific moment where you felt that tension between like your art making and your sort of, I don't know, the political like implications of your body, or your sort of any sort of impulse towards like activism, advocacy.
Go, Julio.
I mean, thank you, Angelica. I think it's so interesting because I came into this out of mere disappointment that I couldn't work, you know, and I couldn't like I actually my first you know, when I started at Long Beach City College, my first I wanted to do art. I wanted to study art, but that is so expensive, even at community college level. And then I ended up doing journalism, you know, which then took me into like creating political cartoons when I was in college. And that was kind of my introduction to like, you know, it wasn't like the art world. It was like, you know, create something political and like put it out there, right? And so in 2010, it took me like 9 years to get my BA in journalism, but she did it. You know, it's always a journey. It's always that. But, you know, in 2010, when I finally graduated, I remember feeling very sad for myself, and I was just like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? Like, I was working at Chipotle at the time, and I hated it, and I remember 2010 being a very pivotal year where, yes, the Dream Act was like a big thing that we were trying to pass, and we were getting really close, but it also became the year that people were coming, like literally coming out and sharing their stories and getting arrested. I remember the specific moment that I freaked out, and but at the same time I made the connections of like queerness and being undocumented, was when in 2010 there was a sit-in at McCain's office, and it was Mo, Yahaira, Lisbeth, Tanya, and Raul. They were like they were doing a sit-in. I was like, oh my god, what are they doing? They're gonna get arrested and deported. But four of them are openly queer. They were like, we're undocumented and we queer, and I was just like, oh yes. And like, me not being an organizer, but like my at the time I was listening to a lot of MIA and Rage Against the Machine, and like I would put that I was like, I need to document this, right? Like, I need to make sure that we are the ones telling, so yeah, the images that you're seeing, it's like a timeline that I was actually forced to create a timeline for the short documentary, because like I made so much stuff around this time that I had to, like, I'm like, when did I do that? I don't remember. But it was about making sure that that we were documented. And so like the tension, to kind of go back to that question, it was like it felt a lot of the times that artists were seen as like Julio, can you like make a flyer for this, right? Like, or can you make that for that? Which to me, I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. Like, I will do that because yes. But then when I started kind of getting into like more exploration mode, we started Dreamers Adrift, which is like we started making a lot of videos with Jesus, and we were kind of making this like funny like sketch videos about like we created this series called Undocumented and Awkward, and some activists were like, what is that gonna do? Like, I literally had conversations with activists, organizers specifically, and it wasn't so much about them hating on it. It was like, there's this like burnout culture that if you're if you're not doing what we're supposed to be, like the thing, like, which is getting arrested, which is super important and that needs to happen, but it almost felt like the art was like separate, right? And it's like years later when we look back, and some of those folks, like I've had conversations where like, yeah, we see the importance of how you were doing that. I wasn't looking for like like acceptance or whatever, but like it was my way of expressing this, right? And so it was really interesting how that tension was happening, and because we were mad, we were angry, and now I see a lot like the way that the art, it's so like people are very inclusive of that, and very there's nonprofits who like actually have budgets for artists. I want to think that I had a little to do with like making sure and pushing that you have to compensate artists, but also like bring artists into the conversation. Like, don't think of us as an afterthought. And the same thing goes for artists. A lot of artists who come into different movements with this like sort of like very like, I'm gonna take and make and then move on, right? Like, it's also like, you can't just come into communities and create art and then move on. Like, you have to be involved, right? And so like, we're all human, we're all learning, but like, you got to learn, and so like it's a give and offer and sharing, right? And so I think we're definitely a long way from that, and there's still learning moments, but yeah.
We have such a similar history. Yeah, so Julio knew me when I was an undergrad, so Julio knows the baby version of me. I love how to draw. I learned how to draw from my tia back in Mexico. I grew up in Mexico until I was 10, and the women in my family all know how to draw. They all know how to paint, which is like such a privilege now, thinking back, that art wasn't like an alien thing to my family. But they never saw it as a money-making scheme. They never saw it as something that someone could do for a career or a job. It was a nice hobby that people could draw. And my tia in particular was probably the first. She was the pioneer of that notion. She makes Catholic replicas of biblical paintings for the church, which is like such a Jalisco. If you're from Jalisco, I call it the Bible Belt of Mexico, because it really feels like it is so deep south over there. and the church is king. And so she would be drawing like a Madonna holding baby Jesus, you know, in the living room that was like 6 feet tall. And she was my babysitter. So in order to get rid of me, she would have me do still lifes of fruit and with oil paints. And it was very, very bougie, but also very budget. And so I grew up with that kind of formal training. She was an architect by trade. And so I had this really technical foundation. And then I immigrated here and I was really alone and really deprived of like companionship from all of my extended family. My mom's number 12 out of 19 children. So there was a lot of cousins, a lot of women around me all the time, like 7 to 8 women taking care of me all the time. It was glorious. And I went from that to like a tiny 1-bedroom apartment in Gardena in California. And I was really alone. And I think painting became a solace for me. Later on, when I got to grad school, I started to do Palestinian solidarity organizing because they needed bodies, they needed work, and they needed folks to do that solidarity work of connecting struggles across communities to get folks to sign on to a petition so that we could get the university to divest from companies that profited off of the Israeli occupation. And I was the only Latinx Mexican person in the space many times. And I had to do those things of like making the PowerPoint to go speak to that organization, to talk to them about the border wall and how the border wall is made with the same cement that the one in Palestine is. And so like these kind of like really important conversations were usually handed on to me. And then I would make like, I was doing graduate work and doing like 30 to 40 presentations a week, you know, just to like get through it. And then finally, at some point, somebody was like, oh, you could draw, can't you? Like, I don't know how that happens, but they find out that you could draw. And then after they find out you could draw, that's all you do. So after that, I was like the flyer person for every event, for every poetry reading. I was making the flyer, I was doing all of the visuals. And I feel really lucky to have been tasked with that work. And it was beautiful to collaborate in that way. So I have some of my old flyers of like, you know, Palestinian poets visiting campus and me making the flyer for that. And we had like hosted a really beautiful filmmaker who did a refugee documentary, and I still keep in touch with him, you know, so just like a really cool time in my life to be able to make art in movement. And also, as Julio said, to really like put labor and put work into that particular space I was contributing to. So that's kind of where I felt the tension of like, oh, should I make art about what's going on with me? Should I just make art about, you know, this organization that I'm working with? And that's where my personal work kind of sprung out, because I made portraits for some of the events, particularly one with Angela Davis. And everybody wanted to keep the poster. They took the poster home. We printed out a couple just to put on the building so people would know where to go. And then they disappeared. So then we were like, let's print some more and sell them to fundraise. And that's kind of how we made our fundraising quota that year, is by selling my portrait of that event. And it just kind of became a thing where I started to really paint all the time. Again, right, I went from like painting as a child to painting as an adult. And it just felt really beautiful and healing for me in that moment. And it was almost like I could sense like my, you know, ancestors in the room going, finally, she's painting, y'all. Like, we got her to paint. And that's kind of when it started. But yeah, I think the tension's always been there for me, where like my undocumentedness, like my queerness was always sort of known and acknowledged in private spaces, but in public programming, it never really made it there, right? People in my circle knew and were very affirming and supportive, but as far as like the organizing and the political work I was doing, it was very removed from that, until one day when we invited Dark Matter at the time, which was Alok Vadmenon and Janani, and they were like, you're queer, aren't you? And I was like, yes. And so that was such a beautiful moment of recognition. So like the panelists and all the people we invited knew behind the scenes, but the programming was never really focused on queerness in that time. And it was such an interesting experience to just be the artist behind the flyers that were very removed from the experience. But there's still tension today, to be honest, and some of the stuff I've been asked to do, right? And that, again, we can speak more about if you want to know the messiness of that.
Yeah, wow. I'm just trying to think about what both of you all said and synthesize it. I'm not an organizer either. I don't have the skill set. I don't have like the energy and like the attention span to do it. And I just get too tired and too scared too quickly, right? But I've been thinking about this question more and more for both poetry and drag, and they have kind of different answers. But I've been learning a little bit more about it, which is that like, well, I guess drag has always in the States been political in many ways, right? And I think with RuPaul's Drag Race, we kind of forget that, or at least how this generation of folks have seen drag on TV. We kind of have seen that removed a little bit. But I had this experience, I guess, a few months ago in March, after the killings in Atlanta. There was a Protect Asian Lives rally that Bubble Tea and a few folks organized, and I was asked to perform. It was my first performance out of COVID, and it was in this outdoor amphitheater, and I thought, oh, this is really important. Like, this is going to be really important, because the way that that event was framed and the reaction to it, it's many different directions, right? A lot of calling it a hate crime, a lot of supporting the carceral state, supporting police. And what we were looking at was, how do we just come together as a community and not try to like bolster these apparatuses. So I was the only queen that on the lineup, and I remember the way the event was going was a lot of speakers saying really important things, really accurate, important, poignant things, and people were getting worked up. They were sitting in the cold, and I think everyone was kind of tense. And I remember thinking how important this performance was and going on. And I did this recreation of an Anita Mui song. Anita Mui, if you don't know, is like a really iconic, like 1990s, 80s canto pop star, super big in Asia. And I performed in Cantonese, and I knew that folks in the audience would recognize this either from their lifetime or their parents' lifetime. And she was so extra. She kind of brought like costume changes and like the visuals of a pop star to Asia. So she had all these costumes, and in this performance, it was called The Song of Sunset, and she wore a wedding gown, and she gave the speech, and she was like, in my life, I've had the chance to marry this person and marry this person, and I was an actor as well as a singer, so I've worn many wedding gowns, but none of those gowns are for me. So tonight I asked my designer to, my gay designer, of course, to make me a wedding gown for me. And then she does that pop star thing where she's like, and who am I marrying? And then she says, I'm marrying my fans tonight, and I'm marrying the stage. So I like faithfully recreate that. And I feel like I remember that moment, kind of the moment like stepping into the sunlight on stage, the crowd shifting in this way, like there was a loosening that happened in everyone's body. And I guess this is a long way to say that like, I'm not an organizer, but I think organizers, they really do need art to hold the depth of not just trauma, but like the joy and history that that we're dealing with, that we're trying to organize against and with. And without that, it's very hard to get people fully present into a space. And then there's so many other benefits or uses of it that just make us more whole. People can see incredible reflections of themselves in great glory, you know, like the young folks who are witnessing the work of our elders now, they have this new way of imagining that they may not have accessed as soon or as easily without it. And also the documentation of it, you know, that it exists, and hopefully these images continue to exist, and that we have a record of how we want to be seen, and the dumb jokes that we make. and the sincere attempts at beauty too that we make as well. Like this is to be able to portray oneself and how one sees himself is an incredible thing. And there was one last thing I wanted to say. Oh yeah, it's like just personally for me, and what I tell my students when I teach a writing workshop is that like the medium that you choose is safe. So if it's just you and the page, not talking about publishing, not talking about sharing with anyone, whatever you put on the page, that's a safe space for you. Even if it's just me like cross-dressing in my room and trying different shapes on my body and experimenting with gender and presentation and dance and movement, that's a safe space for me. Like my body is safe. And that cannot be understated as well when you're in opposition with the state and the state is trying to get rid of you. Like you need that. You need whatever little space you can create for yourself. So I love art. Okay.
Thank you for that. Whoa. And I just remember seeing pictures of that performance and that sunlight like coming through. And I don't know if that's the wig or like the hat behind you from that performance.
So I bought that hat. That's a sun hat from homophobic Target. Cop loving homophobic Target. I bought it. You spray paint it white, and then you pin it up into a tri-corner hat with fishing wire, and then you just glue shit to it. You hot glue shit to it.
Wow, innovation.
I'm so glad that like I feel like I always like I don't know, it's just like trying to survive off of poetry and drag just makes you feel like the most useless person in the world, you know? Where it's just like, I made 12K this year in New York, I'm gonna continue to live. But I'm really glad of that moment, even if that performance, because it was like really cloudy. And there was literally like 3 seconds where the sun came out and it hit the stage. And I was like, in my 8 years performing, I know I need to walk into that sunlight. And it was just like just very slowly walking into it, and then you turn around and the light hits you. Oh my God, the crowd went crazy. Okay.
Wow, yeah, thank you for that. And Angelica, thank you for evoking your familial history and that lineage, and Julio talking about the present archive and it's sort of that, you know, documenting our existence and our presentness. So looking at, you know, taking from what was sharing around their students and thinking about sort of the younger generation sort of reflecting on this lineage. Angelica and Julio, I wonder if you have any sort of like what is your vision for the future, and especially sort of beyond like all these definitions and borders around queerness and undocumentedness, like, you know, what do you see?
I just see friendship saving us all. I've been having I'm a water sign, so let me indulge in the emotions, but I've just been having such a interesting, I'm transitioning through a lot of things right now, finished my PhD, moved out of state. I have never been in another city other than LA since 10, so this is a lot. And one of the things that has really anchored me and saved me has always been queer chosen family and friendship. And I think about how I probably wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for my queer family, my chosen family, and how we don't really talk enough. I'm so tired of romantic relationships, y'all. I'm so tired of romantic shit getting the center stage when we really need to talk about the best friend. We really need to talk about the Jesus in our life. We really need to talk about, mine is Jack. Jack is my anchor. And I just want us to really have a future where friendship is given the place it deserves, right? Friendship is what saved me. And I'm sure a lot of queer people can say the same. My partner's great, but my best friend is it, you know? And I want the future to include that narrative, that love story, right? The greatest love story I've ever lived is when being my best friend. So I want people to really see that in the future, and I want to see more of it. I want people to be unafraid to say that their bestie is their soulmate. Like, what the fuck? So I just really want that for us as a collective, and I want us to end currency as is known today. I really want to just like have ways to compensate each other that don't include the money that the state has made. So I'm trying to pay people with art. I'm trying to pay people with other things, my space, my love, just make it really mushy. But that's kind of what I see. And I'm hoping to bring into reality in my lifetime.
I couldn't agree more, Angelica, and the friendship part. I've been watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy again, and like she's Meredith and Dr. Yang's relationship. It's just like goals, right? Like they have their mans, but like their friendships. They're like they're the romantic presentation of that show. But yeah, like friendships, right? Like in terms of like what do I see in the future, right? Like I think naming TV. As we all grew up obsessed with like pop culture, and like we were discussing the things that we saw growing up, and I think for me, as I've been, Hollywood has been like a sort of this place where our stories get told, right? Like this is what people who like might not go to like sit in these classes or come to these panels or like that go to the marches, this is how they learn about the other, like through TV especially, right? And so like that is something that I kind of want to want to fucking come in and like kind of like destroy the system that is in there, right? And so like my hope is to like get, especially as an undocumented person, get more undocumented folks to be telling those stories, right? Like because I'm just, yeah, like the little times that we see an undocumented immigrant story, it's either around deportation, around DACA, very tragic, right? And like the majority not written by us. And so like I get tapped to like sit into like writers' rooms with like people who are U.S. citizens, and like I'm like, there's a whole group of people, creatives who are, why don't you tap into them? And like the where the thing comes in, it's like we're talking about money, right? Like this ceiling is like, well, there's a system, and it's like people are who have this power, and it could be, it's sometimes it's like our own people who like are finally there, but they're so comfortable that they don't want to create different venues. So anyways, like I guess what I'm saying is like I just like the newer folks, a generation of folks who like are using those mainstream mediums, like it was, we'll talk about like how RuPaul Drag Race has really changed the way, in good ways and bad ways, you can say, but nonetheless, like it's folks like we're the ones who should be like leading the stories, right? Like, and there's a lot of queer folks, but it's very white, very that. And so like how are we changing those things? So I envision being able to create for us, because as undocumented people, there's like 11 million undocumented folks. That's a lot of people to create for. And so like there's this idea that like who's gonna watch it? Well, like there's a lot of us who are gonna watch it.
Yeah, definitely. And so before we end, I want to give a few minutes to have folks ask questions in the chat if you have any, and we'll take one or two questions in the chat. But in the meantime, how can folks support your work? And anyone can share.
So I'm going to drop a link in the chat. I'm going to be that person.
Let's drop it.
This is my personal art store and the place where I sell prints of my work. And I think Julio made the point earlier, the best way to support us is in life and not in death. And we all need to eat. So help me eat. Click on the link.
Yeah, and that's my if you want to see the rest of the short doc, it's like 12 minutes, you can see it there. I'm also gonna plug another thing that we just wrapped up, but like we're gonna continue next year, is the Disruptors Fellowship, which is something that I co-created with the Center for Cultural Power, which is that, right, like creating spaces for up and coming TV writers who are undocumented, who are disabled, who are trans and gender nonconforming. We created a fellowship specifically for that. So my goal is to have more spaces like that where we get paid to create, and because a lot of these fellowships and internships are like, well, come and learn. It's like, well, I wish I could pay rent like that way, but you know, that's, but so next year we're gonna it will be our third one, so visit that.
Yeah.
Oh, hi.
Oh no, I was just gonna, sorry, I was gonna say, and check out their current fellows and alumni and all of their work too. There's some amazing filmmakers, you know, video makers, art makers that have been part of that.
I'm really lucky right now. I just moved into an apartment, a house really, that my best friend lives in. And I mean like my best friend lives across the hall from me. And that is just, I can't even quantify like the value of that. I'm paying more, but I was like in the shower doing math, being like, what like numeral can I put to that? And I can't think of one. But I'm really lucky in that like I got a new job and I can afford to live here in this new space, and I really needed to get out of my old place. So I'm just gonna drop my Instagram handle, the illustrious Pearl, on here. I have my first poetry book is coming out next year, actually, in May 2022. Very late on my edits, but I just wanted to share my handle in case folks wanted to follow. The pre-order link should be up in October, assuming I get all my edits in. But yeah, I just wanted to share that news, and I hope I can share my book with the folks in this Zoom room, or anyone who is interested, really. Togetherness is the name. It's a lot about growing up in my family's Chinese restaurant, working there, seeing my brothers work there, my parents work there, and just being that, like, have you ever gone to like a Chinese restaurant, you've seen like that kid in the corner like doing algebra, like that was just my entire childhood. It was like public display algebra, like running around. So that was me. And I'm just really excited to like put that into the world. Honestly, like, so tired of thinking about it, but I want to see this through. And how successful your first book is as a poet is a big deal. So if there's way to support me in that, I would really love that. So yeah, and we just stay connected through Instagram for sure.
Oh, so if there's any questions, put them in the chat. But I just want to thank you all, Whoa, Angelica, Julio, for this moment of togetherness. It's been so special, and such a dream to share space and to continue being community together. And you know, I've learned so much from all of you, and are so lucky to be sort of in the same moment together. So any questions in the chat? Otherwise, I will hand it over to Lau and Kali for some closing.
Oof, wow. This panel was amazing. The conversation just hit home so deeply. So thank y'all. Thank y'all for all your insight, you know, sharing your art with us, sharing yourselves with us. I'm so proud to be in the space. And yeah, I want to also give a shout out to all the folks who are here, our co-sponsors, Q, the whole collective. None of this would have been possible without every single one of y'all. And I hope that, you know, like, this will be forever remembered. The space just will always be like, I'll be like 80 years old and I'll be like, oh my God, Homoland security. like it's just, I'm so really so proud. And Lau, would you like to say some words before we go into our celebratory moment?
That's amazing. The slower was in reference to the 80-year-olds part. But yes, I wanted to reiterate that definitely sharing yourselves, like, and sharing your time with us tonight, and sharing your art with the world. And yeah, such a amazing time being with y'all tonight. Yes, definitely. We will also be sharing, of course, the poster with our panelists and people who have been involved with their work. So if people who are not currently in the spotlight would like to get their own poster, this is again the link to get some of this incredible artwork in your own space. And yes, reiterating the thank you for everyone. I don't think we had any questions in the chat. So our next move is to go on to our DJ session with DJ Funky Caramelo. So I hope everyone is ready.
And right before we go into the DJ set, we're gonna show a video. Varun's gonna play it. So for folks who don't know who DJ Funky Caramelo is, DJ Funky is a seed from Mexico City, harvested by the streets of LA. She's a queer femme who utilizes the stage as a way to equalize female-identified representation within nightlife event productions. Through her DJ set, she aims to celebrate the music from artists of color, especially those who fall under the LGBTQIA spectrum. She's the resident DJ at Cumbiaton, along with leading marketing, press, and promotion for the party. So without further ado, we'll show the video and then we'll take a quick break before we jump into the set.
Actually a genre. This beautiful, the word Cumbiaton is actually a genre. This beautiful fusion of cumbia and reggaeton. Cumbiaton, the party, is a space where we would be playing cumbia all throughout, right? Like a cumbia marathon.
Cumbiaton isn't just the regular party you go to. Cumbiaton is a space where everyone should feel comfortable to take up space.
Para mí es una experiencia, porque este Cumbiaton no es nada más de jóvenes, también es de familias, ¿sí?
Cumbiaton means our culture, our music, our descendants, our history. It's valid and it is worth celebrating.
Cumbiaton means family, it means community, it means just having fun and being free to be who I am.
Cumbiaton, first and foremost, it means friendship. I know my community is protecting me, and Cumbiaton means a safe space. It means protection. It means that you are gonna have fun.
So right before we go into our set, we're gonna take 5 minutes. Danilo, can you cue the cute countdown, please? So once the countdown is over, we'll jump right into the DJ set. So stick around.
Oh, Varun, do you have a cue? Do you want me to?
Yeah, if you just give me a minute.
Yeah. So during this break, get some water, get your favorite preferred beverage, a snack, dinner, put on your wig.
Put on your big shoes.
Yeah, light up. You gotta do, get comfortable, yo.
And check out the rest of that short, who we just put the link in the chat. It's a really amazing documentation of faith. Oh, yes, heels.
And just so you all know, the recordings of these events will be available with transcripts within the next few weeks. So if you joined us late, if you just want to watch this again, this will be available to you. So stay tuned for that. And let's see, do we want the cats? What timer do we want, y'all?
Up to you.
Here, all right. This one is very chaotic, which I think is appropriate. So here we go.
The fire energy is coming through.
Always.
Oh my God, yes, I love that.
Isn't there
okay.
a sound?
Let's see.
That's so good. Oh my God. All right, we'll be back in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Uh, DJ, let us know if you're all good with your sound. But yeah, we'll see you soon. I'm gonna do a costume change.
Gonna get water.
Hey everyone, how are we doing? Thank you so much to the QR Foundation for inviting me to be part of Homoland Security series. I appreciate the invitation. My name is DJ Funky Caramelo. I am based in LA. And as you all saw the mini short, I am part of Cumbiaton LA, which is a collective of immigrants, of undocumented, of documented folks out here in LA, and we throw parties where you can bring your mom, you can bring your tia, you can bring your grandpa, you can bring your boo. So I hope, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing you all at any of our upcoming LA events. We do travel, so you might just catch us up in the East Coast. Again, my name is DJ Funky Caramelo. I have an hour DJ set. If you are able, I encourage you to dance with me, to sway with me. As it was mentioned, art has the power to move, to guide movements, and it also has that ability for us to just unwind and just continue on and enjoy. We all are deserving of joy, don't forget it. I hope you all enjoy what I have for each and every one of you today. Let's go. Yo, this is a classic. Yo, shout out to Cali, I see you. All he wanna do is gas me. How we end up in the backseat, just trying to get to the bag. Be on the same page, you the same way. Only keep the fam around me, so let me know what it's gonna be. I don't plan on getting no sleep. Go how we doing our thing, moving too fast. Candy paint with the windows all black, seats creme brulee. What they gon' say? With the top down, screaming money, anything. We up till 6 in the morning. When the sunrise, I'll be on it. Boy, I got fire, the corn so live. Tell me when to go, baby, when we gon' stop, baby, when we gon' slide. Up all night, baby, when we gon' slide. Oh, hey, tell me when we gon' slide. I don't care if we on a run, nothing matters when we one-on-one. Looking at us cause we going dumb. We on the same wave, you the same way. You know I'll be down if it's with you. Where we going, baby, what's the move? We should take a trip up to the moon. Get a room, on our thing, moving too fast. Candy paint with the windows all black, seats creme brulee. What they gon' say? Put the top down, screaming money, anything. We up till 6 in the morning. When the sunrise, I'll be on it. Shouts out to Danilo and shouts out to Varun for putting this together. We all went together. Make you want me 'cause I'm hot now. I'm gone, so faded, I'm on one. Bang, bang, pop off like a long gun. You ain't making, you ain't making no noise. Get ready to turn up with the big boys. Live fast, kinda young, that's my choice. Get money like a champion. Make the whip, make the money, make the grip. I be stunning like my click. Get it faded till we trip. Yo, we made it to 2021 alive, y'all. That's something to celebrate. Yo, I see you, Danilo. Yo, it's the weekend. It's Saturday. We got another throwback.
Time to party. people say. I don't really watch what them want to do. Still I got to stick to my girls like glue. And I'm a number two. All I know the time is just getting jet. Need a lot of cheese up in my head. And a lot of this there in my bed to run that real. But I'll stick a girl in body, run your body. I think me up and tell them no, take out your body. Front way, back way, protect him on up and shove it. Dirt in them walk, give me a name. Talk it. All girls out the road and say them seven. And I tell them, say them up, so give me. I'm a time and them all a dream about the TV. Them a promise and I tell them, say I'm baby. If you proud of me, let's see already, I said the fuck up.
Yo, we got another classic. Let me know what state you are in. Go ahead and rap your state. I want to see where are folks from. We got Connecticut in the building. We got New York in the building. Yo, we got California in the building. I see you.
What? They want reggaeton. Esto es lo que quieren. Toma reggaeton. Toma reggaeton. You see, I know we get my story. I always kick it. When I bone shorty, I slap culo and listen. Soy eterna estrella cuando canto lo que dicen. Una nalgada en el culo, ella grita. You see, I'm already got a rap for his own. And he for Hardo. Say wrong by your own. Santiago, tabaco y ron. Acá en Puerto Rico con Bacardi y ron. And this is all that. All of them keys and bagels on it. Toma reggaeton. We make some bagel on it. Machine con glory on it. Reggaeton comes and style. We make it. Yo, things are getting hot up in here. where the sun goes. Glitter in the sky, glitter in my eyes, and it's funny. If you're feeling like you need a little bit of company, you want me at the same time. You want me, I want you, baby. My sugar boo, I'm levitating. The Milky Way, we're renegades. I got you, moonlight, starlight. I need you all night. Come on, dance with me. I'm levitating. You, moonlight, starlight. I need you all night. Come on, dance with me. I'm levitating. I'm one of the greatest, ain't no debate, no. How we doing? 2021, we made it. Yo, I see you and I appreciate each and every one of you. I know Pride happened last month, but we all know we celebrate each and every day. Try everything you can do. The pain of love that you on the cover of a magazine. Grace, Kelly, Harlow, G, picture of a beautiful G, Kelly, artist dance, Ginger Rogers, dance all day. They have style, they have grace. Rita Hayworth, gave good face. Mara, Catherine, Nella, June, Betty Davis, we love you. Ladies with the attitude, balance that in the blue. Don't just stand and dance it too. It's like
You shaking that thing, who's the fish? The look in your eyes, devilish. You like to dance on the hip hop spots. You cruise to the cruise, connect the dots. Not just urban, she like the pop, cause she was living la vida loca. She had jumps like a truck, rise like baby move your I think I sing it again. She had jumps like a truck, like night long. Let me see that song. Baby, that dong, da dong, dong, dong. Give me the beat, go. Baby, make it booty go. That dong, da dong, 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 dong. That dong, da dong, 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 dong. That girl's so scandalous, and I know another nigga couldn't handle it. And she's shaking that thing, lose the itch, with a look in the eyes, so devilish. Yo, Cali, go off, I see you. Not just her, then she's like the doctor, so living la vida loca. She comes like a drop. Guys like, baby, move your butt. Think I say it again, she comes like a drop. Like, all night long. Then he see that dawn. Baby, that dawn. I like it when you wake up. Baby, make it wake up. That dawn. Don't forget to hydrate. Yo, salud. Cheers, y'all. Cheers.
How we doing? Lo de siempre ando cabrón, dando vueltas en el maquinón, pídale 50 solón. Desde que salí, que me repetí, pero no noté, baby, me fui llorando por ahí. Lo de siempre ando cabrón, dando vueltas en el maquinón, pídale 50 solón. Ando por ahí, con lo de siempre ando cabrón, dando vueltas en el maquinón, pídale 50 solón. Ando por ahí, por ahí, por ahí, por ahí, por ahí,
I'm just a bachelor. I'm looking for a partner, someone who knows how to ride without even falling on. Gotta be compatible, takes me to my limits. Girl, when I break you off, I promise that you won't lose it all. I got a little bit of everything today. How are we doing? Let me know how you doing on the chat. Yo, shouts out to Danilo, shouts out to JD. Shouts out to Laura. Sencillita, bien bella la maldita, ni DJ pelado ni lo mira, feo y ranteado se lo tira. Yo le di un par de veces, ahora no me da play, no se aparece. Mami, suéltame lo mío, no me piché que yo sé que tú has corrido. Ahora dale duro. Pero ella no es una cualquiera, ella es chicha. Pero no se contiene, ella quiera. No quiere, no de solo relaciones pasajeras. Que vengan a controlarla, eso no era. Que vengan a mandarla, eso no era. Que quieren dominarla, eso no era. Prefieren pasarse la vida soltera. Ella tiene lo de ella en su caldera. Donde quiera, sabe donde quiera. Ella se amanece y llega cuando quiera. Donde quiera, sabe donde quiera. Ella se levanta y eso no quiera.
Yes, you wanna look. 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 I don't wanna look like you do. I don't wanna look like you do.
Bonita, pero mentirosa, engañas a los hombres, siempre con mentiras mentirosas. Eres bonita, pero mentirosa, engañas a los hombres, siempre con mentiras mentirosas. Eres bonita, pero mentirosa, engañas a los hombres, siempre con mentiras mentirosas. Hoy te vi confundidos caminando, carita de coqueta, colegialas de mi amor. Tú sonríes sin pensar que al mirarte, solo porque estoy sufriendo, colegialas de mi amor, mi amor, mi amor.
Vecina a la vuelta de la esquina viene llegó rumbeando. Con la luna en las pupilas en su traje agua marina van después del contrabando. Los demás no van a y se mete a darse caña poseído por el ritmo de la canta. El DJ que lo conoce con cariño de las 12 para llegó la canción más deseada. Y la baila, y la goza, y la canta. Caminando, digo tiene chulería y ese punto de alegría retrataria profita. Los demás no cambian, no hay esencia de ese caña poseído por el ritmo de la cancha. El DJ que lo conoce toca lindo de las 12 para llegó la canción más deseada. Y la baila, y la goza, y la canta.
Hala tu cuerpo, alegría, Macarena, que tu cuerpo es para dar la alegría y cosa buena. Hala tu cuerpo, alegría, Macarena, Macarena. Hala tu cuerpo, alegría, Macarena, que tu cuerpo es para dar la alegría y cosa buena. Hala tu cuerpo, alegría, Macarena, Macarena. Macarena tiene un novio que se llama de apellido Victorino.
I see you, Barun, I see you.
Se la dio con dos amigos. Macarena tiene un novio que se llama de apellido Victorino. En la jura de bandera del muchacho. Se la dio con dos amigos. Hala tu cuerpo, alegría, Macarena, que tu cuerpo es para dar la alegría y cosa buena. Hala tu cuerpo, alegría, Macarena, Macarena. Hala tu cuerpo, alegría, Macarena, que tu cuerpo es para dar la alegría y cosa buena. Hala tu cuerpo, alegría, Macarena, Macarena. Macarena, 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 que te gustan los veranos de Marbella. Macarena, 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 que te gusta la movida guerrillera. Hala tu cuerpo, alegría, Macarena, que tu cuerpo es para dar la alegría y cosa buena. Hala tu cuerpo, alegría, Macarena, Macarena. Hala tu cuerpo, alegría, Macarena, que tu cuerpo es para dar la alegría y cosa buena. Hala tu cuerpo, alegría, Macarena, Macarena. Toda la noche rompemos, al otro día volvemos. ¿Sabes cómo lo hacemos, baby?
All right, y'all, this is the last song.
Like fuego.
Thank you once again to the QR Foundation for inviting me. Thank you.
Toda la noche rompemos, al otro día volvemos. ¿Sabes cómo lo hacemos, baby? Baby, nice like fuego. Mi mano es llena de dinero. We party to the extremo, 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 extremo. No son ni Reebok ni Sonai, nah. Sin estilista luzco fly. La Rosalía me dice que luzco guay. No te lo digo porque yo sé lo que hay. Lo que se ve no se pregunta. Yo te espero y tengo claro que es mi culpa. Como Canelo en el ring nada me asusta. Vivo en mi oasis y la paz no me la tumba. Juro batata como Timor y Pumba. Voy pa' leyenda así que dale zumba. Los dejo sigo con la vibra que me alumbra. Haters pa' la tumba, nosotros pa' la rumba. Toda la noche rompemos, al otro día volvemos. Tú sabes cómo lo hacemos, baby.
Shout out to Cali. I see you, Cali. I appreciate you.
Party to the extremo, baby. Toda la noche rompemos.
Shout out to Lau. I see you, Laura. I appreciate you.
Baby. Nice like fuego. Dinero. You party to the extremo, 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 extremo.
Shouts out to Lily. I see you, Lily. Shouts out to JD, to Jillian.
The rhythm, the rebel, styles upon styles upon styles. I got several. Wanna be wild cause I live like a dead devil. Live it up, hit him up. That's a scenario. Tupac, I get around like a merry-go rooftop. I am on top of the pedestal. Shot. I am so sick, I need medical. Puta. I learned that shit down in Mexico.
Shouts out to Desiree.
Doing it, prove I be on a new level. That's how we do it, we build it like Lego.
Shouts out to MX Messages. I see you.
Addicted, I never quit. Don't stop. Don't need to speak to no therapist. Don't stop. Keeping it moving is the narrative. Don't stop. Do it like whoop. There it is. This is the rhythm. Al otro día volvemos. Tú sabes cómo lo hacemos, baby. Baby, nice like fuego. We bout to spend the dinero. We party to the extremo, baby. Toda la noche rompemos. Al otro día volvemos. Tú sabes cómo lo hacemos, baby. Baby, nice like fuego. We bout to spend the dinero.
Yo, thank you so much once again for having me. My name is DJ Funky Caramelo. Shouts out to each and every one of you for vibing. I appreciate you. I see you. I celebrate you. I can't wait till hopefully we will be able to cross paths soon. Thank you once again to the QR Foundation for inviting me to Homoland Security Series. Thank you once again. Have an amazing weekend. Be safe out there. And yeah, let's continue to build. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram at dj.caramelo.
Thanks, Graciela. Oh my God, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh my God, wow. And thank you all for being here. This has been such a celebration. And it's Graciela and I got to see each other after many years recently at the Brooklyn Museum when she like killed it during First Saturdays in the flesh after many years. Graciela was my mentor in the Dream Summer program when I was a baby, baby and docuQueer.
Baby Danilo.
And pre DJ me, but I am so grateful for each of you and to our collective members. I mean, this is not goodbye because basically there's an after party because of course there's an after party. So can we get that slide up? Let's do it. So I will be DJing an after party literally right now, and you are all invited. I'll post the link in the chat. It's just another Zoom room. bit.ly/Homoland. And yeah, please join us. We'll be partying until whenever. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much all for being here. And I hope to see you at the after party, truly. Thanks, Lily, Josie, and Jillian for your support of this program and this series.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you all for your work. It was great to work with you. Congratulations on an amazing series.